Welcome to Beyond the Hub, where we talk about everything from sales to marketing to your business as a whole. And today is all about reporting and specifically dashboards. So joining me today is Chris Grant, HubSpot certified trainer, HubSpot Academy reporting instructor, and consultant here at BabelQuest. So if anyone is qualified to talk about dashboards, it's going to be Chris. We're going to be talking about 5 different dashboards that all businesses, regardless of the industry, regardless of the size, you need. So I'm going to give Chris a scenario or a business need, and then he's going to tell me what reports he would have on a dashboard. Are you feeling ready, Chris?
I am. Exciting.
Okay, starting with dashboard number 1, we have got the basics. So we want to see a top level overview of the business as a whole. What report should I have in it?
So this one is sort of, I'd call it a company update dashboard, and it's something that you can put on a big screen in the office that just keeps everyone aware of exactly what's going on. So the sort of things you want to be able to see are those top level metrics. So things like your sales target, close won deals versus the target for the year, helps everyone see exactly where you're going. Nobody has to ask. It's there.
I like that.
I think oh, sorry, continue.
No. I was going to say, when you talk about these reports, it's really great. But can you also say about what they look like visually? Like, are they one of those, the spin round? Are they a graph? Are they line? What kind of? I think that impacts it quite a lot, doesn't it?
I think for sales target, there's a new kind of report that HubSpot have added to the reports creator, the reporting tool. And interestingly, for anyone listening, loads of people haven't noticed it, haven't used it. I don't see it in a lot of portals. And that's a gauge report.
Mm-hmm.
And a gauge report gives you the opportunity to basically you've got a gauge and you can plot in the lines and you can make different colored bands. And basically it's a nice visual representation of where you are versus a target. You can put in last year's sales figures as a line. But it's not complicated. It's a nice, simple, very visual kind of report, and it works for everything. But I think things like top level KPIs, it's really, really powerful if you just want people to be able to see exactly where you are at any given time.
Exactly. You don't have to be a data analyst to understand what that graph is, what that report is showing you.
That's the big one. And actually, I think that's a really good point for all of this conversation, is that a lot of the time people build these dashboards that you would have to be a data analyst to actually understand and make decisions based on. And a lot of companies, especially down the sort of SMB end of the spectrum, don't have a data analyst. So there's a lot of meaningless dashboards out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So on this one, we've covered then the sales KPIs. What else would you say needs to be on it?
I've also got on my mocked up version of this, which if anybody would like to see any of this sort of thing, then do get in touch and we can show you some images. But employee satisfaction scores. So we've got sales target. We know how we are in each target, but most companies do an employee satisfaction survey once a quarter, once a half, and actually putting those scores up is, well, unless your company's a horrible place to work, it's quite a nice motivating thing because it just reinforces. You see it on the dashboard, everyone's happy, everyone's encouraged to be the best they can be, whatever it happens to be. You can see that every day, and it tends to lift the mood, especially if you're looking down and you're saying, right, we're on target to hit the sales target, and everybody's happy. It's I think it's a nice thing to stick on there. And again, very simple, very visual.
And super impactful as well for if you've got new starters that have joined and they see that and they're like, oh, yeah, I have joined a good company. That's a nice reminder.
And, going on from that satisfaction thing, you then let's have a look at the customer satisfaction reports as well. Let's see how happy our customers are. And we can also put that on a dashboard. So again, just those top level, highly visible KPIs that allow everybody to be aligned, but allow everybody to actually get excited about what's happening within the organization.
Yeah, and do your job a little bit better. Like if I can see that the customer satisfaction score's not doing what it should, then maybe I'll try a little bit harder this month, or just puts it front of mind, doesn't it?
Yeah. What can I do to to help with these numbers on a daily basis. And this sort of thing's brilliant, highly visual, and actually will probably save you a meeting a week. So if you think about all the people you've got, think about all the people in the company coming to an all hands meeting that's an hour long, where you're presenting sales figures, customer satisfaction, all of that sort of thing. If everyone can see it, you can get rid of that meeting, and that's an hour back for every employee. So think of the potential financial savings.
That's a really good point. And because they're so easy to understand, you don't need to go through them. You can just see, you can just look up and see it if it's on a screen in your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I like to put on there is just the marketing update. So you can see, we've got sales covered, we've got customer service, we've got employees. So let's see how many marketing leads we're generating, what's successful, how many marketing leads are closing, just those top level, not too deep, but enough so that, again, everybody knows that the marketing team are doing a great job. So I think that's a nice thing to have as well.
And again, I guess on that, you would be able to see, again, the different campaigns that are going on at the moment as well, or is it just leads being generated?
So I would tend to go fairly top level. I mean, you could list the different campaigns, but with that sort of thing, I would tend to put that on a more specific dashboard. But I think you could potentially pick highlights, so marketing highlights, because I think what we don't want to do with this sort of dashboard is go down the rabbit hole of adding hundreds and hundreds of reports and
that's
suddenly,
my bias coming out there. It's like, I want to show more of what marketing do because I'm a marketer.
Don't worry, we're gonna talk about that later. We do have a dashboard ready, which I actually call the value of marketing. So you can prove how well you're doing, but in this respect, I think it's just so that everybody knows that marketing is doing a great job. There's leads being generated. They're being handing over to sales who are closing them. They're handing them over to customer service, and everything seems to be working nicely. Or, if it isn't, then everybody's able to then see that, and it's nice and open, and people can, like you say, they can ask, what can I do to help with this?
Okay, that's great. I love that. And I think I proved your point a little bit where by asking about, can we dive deeper into marketing there, that actually everyone kind of needs to put their egos at the door. We don't need to know every single little thing that everyone's doing. It is, like I mentioned, it's a top level overview. So I think you've encapsulated that perfectly. But what about if people are using HubSpot? I want to see if they're using it, if they're using it properly.
So for this, I have what I call a adoption and utilization monitoring dashboard. And actually, we started cooking this up before some of the recent changes in HubSpot. And I think eventually HubSpot will actually have this baked in. But what I want to be able to do is I want to see that people have adopted the CRM. We spend all this time with companies talking about adoption, but the adoption is important. We can give people a kick, we can threaten them, we can put it into their contract. You have to use the CRM. That doesn't mean they're going to use it on a daily basis. And what we want to be able to see, not so that we can beat people up, but we want to be able to see utilization on a daily basis so that we can essentially see leading indicators of problems that might be coming our way. So we break this into sections. The first section is activity metrics. And what we're doing is trying to show an overview of the team's activities, where a low level of activity will imply that either they're not using it right, there's a problem, or they haven't correctly integrated their calendar, anything like that. So again, if we start seeing drop-offs, then we can start investigating, what's the problem? Three of the sales team haven't logged in all week, or haven't performed any activities. Are they on holiday, or have they secretly developed a spreadsheet that nobody else knows about? Which does happen. But there's other stats around there, like deal creation. So let's see, how many people are creating deals, and are they creating them at the right stage? So we're not getting that sales practice where, under promise, over deliver. So we hide all our deals until the last day of the month and then suddenly add them at closed one. So we want to make sure that the right behaviors are taking place.
And I think what you've mentioned there that's really important to highlight is the bit about context. So you can look at these reports and it'd be like, oh, Chris has not done anything in the last week. Well, yeah, that's because he's been on holiday. So it's like being able to look at things, but remember about the context. And, a finance director isn't going to have the same level of activity as a sales rep, for example. So it's having that in your mind when you're looking at this report as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with other things that we can look at on here, I actually embed HubSpot in HubSpot, which is
Love that.
basically just taking a section of HubSpot, embedding it in a dashboard so that I can monitor user logins, and the functionality has been extended. So I can see things like whose calendar is not connected to HubSpot, whose email is not connected to HubSpot, who's not logged in for a couple of months. And then I can look at things like tracking daily active users, monthly active users, potentially then plotting them. And if we're starting to see, that going down and to the right instead of up and to the right, then we know that there's a potential problem. And we can go and dig in and have a look at what people are actually doing, talk to the users, find out, what's the problem, get ahead of it before it becomes endemic and something that's, not using the CRM becomes part of the company culture.
Mm-hmm. And do you have anything on there about training? As in, I don't know if this is something that would be on a whole separate dashboard, but training in terms of the academy, is that you can track that, can't you?
Yeah, so in your HubSpot portal, if you go to the HubSpot Academy via the portal, there's a section called My Team, and you can see what certifications everyone's got, which ones are running out, and who's actually doing certifications. So what we would have internally, we've got a list of certifications, the sort of minimum requirements for a specific job role. So, for example, sales, we want them to have done sales software, frictionless sales, etc., etc. So we can see, have they done it? Because we've asked them to, but also have they gone above and beyond? Do we have some potential champions developing that are developing an interest that we might be able to use to our advantage? So important to track that. I also track I've basically created a custom object called a HubSpot user so that I can track their training record. So nice simple table, name of the person, and we're just tracking, are they a champion? Can they train others? Have they completed basic training, intermediate, admin training? And we can just keep a tag on who's done what, and we can work out, is there somebody that's been working in the sales team for 3 years that hasn't done any training at all?
Yes. And I think that is so important what you've just said there. It's not just about flagging problems, it's about flagging opportunities. So flagging the good things and highlighting them and praising people when they are a champion and getting them to implement that in the wider team as well, right?
I think so. It's just shared experiences. If somebody's, ideally what you want to be able to see is your successful salespeople have done all the training, are using the academy, and are using the system well, because then you can kind of that you can extrapolate that and work out that your less successful salespeople are probably the people that are circumventing process, not doing what you ask them to do, and flying by the seat of their pants.
And I think what you the process that you mentioned there about creating a custom object for this, I'm sure we've got a HubSpot hack on this, so I will share that afterwards. But are there anything else that you track on that, or is that everything for adoption and utilization?
So I like to track a few of the key data health metrics as well. So there is definitely a HubSpot hack on creating a data health dashboard where you're monitoring all your key data points. But for the adoption and utilization, I want to be able to see, just the top level missing data. Are we missing people's names? Do we have lots of deals with close dates in the past? And this will be specific to any given organization, usually around the custom properties that you're collecting. Are we missing the key segmentation properties that we need to market effectively? And I think that again is quite important, because it gives you a snapshot. We can see if the data's trending bad, then there's a problem and we need to get ahead of it. And often you'll find things like, okay, that data point is not getting filled in regularly. Let's have a look at the record. Oh, the data point's not on the record, so people are having to click 3 more times to get to that particular data point, and thus they're not doing it.
So it's making it easier for the people that are actually using the system to use the system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Love that. Dashboard number 3. So we've done top level overview. We have done, I want to see if people are using HubSpot. And then this kind of relates to it. And I'm not sure if you've already covered that, but it's not necessarily reporting, but more like a data bank. The scenario is I want to train my staff.
Yeah. And I think this is really important. We train our teams, we spend money, we define training, we'll put our people through, learn how to do this. We might get an external trainer in, but we never reinforce it. And I think quite often this would be especially pertinent to the SMB end of the market, where you don't have your own learning system embedded in your company. So what I like to do is I'll create what we'll do, you'll go through the training, but then we create bite-sized versions. So how to filter your contacts, how to create a deal, how to work through the company X sales process in HubSpot. Nothing more than about 2 to 3 minutes. So they're very much bite-sized, just-in-time training, I like to think of them as. And we can record the videos, we can import them into HubSpot, and we can put them on a dashboard. So people can just go to that dashboard quickly. They'll scroll through. Oh, I don't know how to create a contact. There's a 2-minute video that shows me how to do it. So it saves asking other people. It saves people going, oh, I don't know how to do that. I'll just jot it down on a piece of paper. So you've got that. It's basically, you've got that top-up training for existing users, but it's also a resource for new users. They come in, they've had their training, but they want to reinforce it. So I think this is something a lot of people miss, which is just the opportunity to embed your training resources about HubSpot directly in the HubSpot portal.
I love that. And you don't lose them, because I know that we do a lot of training videos for people when we use, systems like Vimeo or Vidyard or Mail Video. We've got so many different types that we can use, and you send it to people and they lose it. So this it just gets lost in that thread of emails. So at least doing it this way, it's somewhere central, everyone can access it. And like I said, we've done a lot of training videos. Chris, you have done a lot of training videos. So what, slightly off topic, but what would you say is an area or a tool in HubSpot that you have to create videos for the most? Like what do people struggle with the most?
I think making sure that they're actually set up properly. It's often that very basic, how to add a never log list to your email, how to update your settings, how to make a meeting link. But the other one that's quite an interesting use case for it is, for example, if you're building any sort of workflows or any sort of mechanism in HubSpot that needs maintenance. So if you've got a workflow that needs to be updated each year, then let's record a video of how to update workflow X, and we'll embed it in HubSpot, because then you've almost got that live portal documentation, so that when the new admin comes in because the old admin left, they get a reminder saying, you need to update this workflow. They don't have to then go and unpack the workflow, rebuild it, waste 3 days trying to work out what it does. They can just go in, watch the training video, change the metrics or the enrollment criteria, and they're good to go.
That is such a good use case, because I've had it when I worked with clients before. I've gone in and there's 6 different workflows for SQL assignment, and that one, why is it in one workflow?
Which have a definition.
they all contradict each other. If there had been a video on what each of them were, it doesn't need to be the most, basic ones, but for the bigger complex ones that need maintenance, like you mentioned, it is invaluable.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can also have not necessarily videos, but have your portal documentation embedded in there as well, so that when you find a property or you need a new property, you can work out whether it exists or not.
Especially for the essentials,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Nobody, that's a whole soapbox. Nobody documents their portal structure, and as a consequence, you see it gradually get worse and worse.
Yeah,
So,
I think we need a
top tip.
whole other Beyond the Hub for documentation for your portal, 100%. So, dashboard number 4. This scenario is as a marketer, it's my favorite. So
It's the one you like.
It's my bias, but marketing. So specifically, I want to see the power of marketing. So is it driving results?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this one, I think it's really important. I think back to my first day as a baby salesperson, aged about 21, and you sort of walked in, got given a telephone and a piece of paper with lots of names on, and they go, "Here's all the leads marketing have generated for you." And back then you soon learned that literally was just some names people had written down on a piece of paper. But I think now more and more we see people, they use the word, the phrase ROI. No one really has a definition of ROI if you ask them what it is. But we want to be able to show the business that, all the marketing things that are going on, the shows, the events, the lead sources are all actually working and contributing. Mm-hmm. So again, it tends to be those sort of a little bit lower than top level. So we have top level marketing metrics on the company dashboard. Here we're kind of drilling down a level, and we're looking at things like marketing leads by source. So we can see how many leads are coming in, where they're coming from, and we can break that down further. Nice big one is closed revenue by marketing source. So we can actually see email marketing is generating this many closed won deals or contributing to this many closed won deals, which again drives alignment between sales and marketing, because the sales team can see it. They can see all of this came from marketing and then they were handed over. And then I like to kind of drill down a little bit deeper. So we look at things like, what's the average sale value across the company from all sources? Mm-hmm. And then what's the average sale value for different marketing sources? So let's see, what's the average sale value from paid advertising? Because that's going to help you make decisions about, should we be investing in paid? Mm-hmm. Is the average sale value so low that actually we're wasting a lot of money? So we can start to then do that nice thing of which marketing sources give us closed won deals. Let's do more of that.
Yeah.
Which give us rubbish deals.
So, or none. Absolutely
no deals. Exactly. And one of the nice things is that you can now mandate contacts being associated with deals when the sales team are creating deals, yes, which takes away the disconnect that we've always seen.
Yeah.
And I think the other one that I'd like to see on there is just, again, breaking down how long those deals take to close by deal source, because then we've got a really good metric. We can see that, paid search has an average value of £2,000, but it takes 60 days to close, versus email marketing will give you £50,000, but it takes 100 days to close. Yeah. And it just allows you from a marketing perspective to make better decisions, but it also shows the company that you're really thinking about this kind of stuff, and that they all should be pushing the LinkedIn posts and liking your stuff on social media and getting involved, because you're making a big effort and it's actually delivering results. So I think that's really powerful and very important to be able to show that.
And I think it goes back to what you were saying before about reducing the time of meetings, or just getting rid of meetings altogether. Like, obviously, I do thoroughly believe that there should always be a sales and marketing alignment meeting every week or every other week, however your business is set up, to run through things like that. But this would save time. You know, you can send this report, it could get emailed to everybody on a Friday or on Monday, and it can reduce some of that friction between the teams to show, you know, I am giving you some good stuff here. Just trust me, trust the process a little bit.
It's that, and I think you've got a couple of good points there, which is one, that if we've got dashboards that you can run a meeting from, that meeting is meaningful, as opposed to just people going, oh well, I don't know, I'm making it up.
Yeah.
And two, you can email that dashboard to everyone that's going to be involved in a meeting. Before the meeting, they can look on the dashboard and they can actually make the changes, do the work, make the decisions, so that meeting then becomes, instead of everybody poring over spreadsheets or whatever it happens to be, everybody's got the same data, it's fully aligned, and it works.
Yeah, it works as a bit of an agenda, which is time saving for everyone else involved. So, final dashboard.
Sure.
Last but not least, about go on.
I was going to say, which brings us quite nicely onto that final dashboard, which tends to be the all important sales KPIs or the sales meeting dashboard.
Yeah, and probably the most requested one for help on, right? But everyone feels like it needs to be different for their company, but actually there's probably like a universal one that can be used. So go ahead.
Yes, there are certain things in this industry of CRMs and tracking and things that people get really hung up on. MQL being one of them. You know, what's an MQL? Well, you define it for your company, and then it's defined and everybody knows. But from a sales perspective, being able to run a meeting from a dashboard is an absolute game changer. You don't get any more. Well, we get on quite well, and we're going to the pub on Tuesday. It'll probably close. You get actually data backed information. And where we were talking before about sending dashboards to people prior to the meeting. So this is the sort of dashboard, and I'll talk through some of the things I like to see on it, but we would have this dashboard for, you know, company level, and then you would have exactly the same but filtered down per department, and exactly the same filtered down per rep.
Yes.
And every rep can then run their day from that dashboard. They know what the KPIs are, and they know what the manager's going to ask them. So the big one I like to see is deal change history. Let's see what's happened this week. How many new deals have been created? Positive things like amount increased or close date moved nearer.
Yes.
Deals moved forwards. You know, let's see all of that positive action. But we also want to see how many deals are being pushed out gradually week on week. Do we have a sales rep that is pushing every deal out every week just so they've got something that they can report on? You know, that implies there's possibly a training need, and we need to understand why they're doing that. So that sort of thing is really good. I also like to see how we are against the target. You know, everybody has their own targets, but there's the departmental target. So let's stick it on a dashboard, because we can talk about it in the sales meeting. I love a leaderboard.
I love a leaderboard. Yes.
I know that we're in a time where taking part is important, but for me, and especially I think with the personality that tends to work in sales, a leaderboard is great. It's aspirational. We can see who's doing what, who's the top dog. But I think also, if you're going to use leaderboards, you have to encourage that culture that it's all right not to be top, but that if we look at the person who's top, then we can try and work out what is it that they're doing. Use
it as a learning tool. You know,
Absolutely.
This person, let's use their technique of doing this rather than being like, it's dog eat dog kind of thing.
Yeah. And if you've got all this data being recorded, you can see that, you know, if the top salesperson, Bridget, is selling loads of things, and the next place salesperson's struggling, Dave's having a bit of trouble, and then we can drill down and go, well, actually, Bridget made X number of calls more than Dave.
Yeah.
Simple. She's putting in the effort. So it's quite nice to be able to encourage people that way.
Yeah, definitely. What else on
I
there?
like I like to see activities. Let's see the activity leaderboard, but let's make sure that we're using some of the other metrics that we can create in HubSpot, like call outcomes. So you'll often get a situation in sales where the sales rep will go to that go-to, no one answers the phone. Well, let's record the call outcomes and we'll see how many. Let's not just track calls, let's track completed calls, conversations. So that's quite nice. We obviously can then go on to forecasting and what's going to close and why is it going to close. And there's been a lot of updates to the forecasting tools in HubSpot, and most recently the AI forecast accuracy, which is going to be able to track which of your team are good at forecasting versus which of your team are not very good at forecasting.
Whether on purpose or not.
Whether it's on purpose or not. And again, it's that positive intent, because a lot of this stuff could be interpreted as, Big Brother watching over you. So companies have to be really careful that all of this is, it's a safe space.
Yes.
It's okay to not be top of the leaderboard. What's not okay is not doing any of it, or not using the system, or not logging your deals. So it's a learning opportunity, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's really important what you've just mentioned about the cultural shift in how you present these. But there's also the question around embedding this in your culture as well. So you put in the effort of making them, but how are you actually going to get people to use them? What would your advice be on that?
So I think that firstly, visibility. A lot of these sort of dashboards, especially the top level ones, you've actually got a little button on the dashboard that you can click, and that allows you to put it on a big screen. So if you've got a big telly in your office, whack a dashboard on there so everyone can see, like that company update. Have it scrolling. Everyone can see what's going on. Run meetings from dashboards. That, I think that's the single biggest thing. It doesn't take that long for people to realize, I've got the meeting, I had the dashboard yesterday, I haven't updated it, so the meeting's going to be difficult. Versus, I've seen the dash, the meeting's tomorrow, I'm going to make sure that all my deals are up to date, all the connections are made. So I think that is the big one. And if you've got those company update type calls, do it from a dashboard. So it's almost just drip feeding that we're all in on CRM here. We're all in, everything's connected, all the data's there, and everybody's using it. And I think the fact that you're running meetings, that people are asking questions, that you're kind of using that data to drive what's happening, it just makes you just get to that point where it does become a cultural thing that everybody knows the marketing meeting is run off the marketing dashboard. We're going to go through these 6 reports and we're going to make decisions based on what we can see.
I like that. And it's so easy to do. Like, it's one small change, but it's going to make such a difference. So I really love that. And I think you kind of mentioned it already about everyone's using it, it's easy to understand. But I think because it's so easy, people might get it into their heads that they can go off and build their own, or it can lead to a lot of problems. So where do people go wrong, do you think, here?
I think there's a few areas people go wrong. One is you get excited.
Yes.
What you'll see, people get ready to go, oh, look, I've got all this data. And they almost take the approach of looking at a load of bricks and a sink and some sofas and some paint and going, I've got all of these, I'm going to cobble a house together. And it doesn't work. You'll end up with a dashboard with 50 reports on it. Dashboards should tell a story. They should be useful for something rather than lots and lots of numbers. And what I always insist on when I'm talking about this is that a report on a dashboard answers a question. If it doesn't answer a question, it's meaningless. So that's the number one thing, which is get aligned around those dashboards. What questions are being asked that we're answering with this data? And and get aligned around the data points. So we don't want to have everybody building reports, because if we're not aligned around the data points that are used in the reports, then the reports are, you'll get 3 reports built by different people using half the same properties, half different properties, and they're just utterly meaningless and nobody knows what they are. And the knock-on impact of that is everyone loses trust and nobody will go to those dashboards. So I think having almost one person that is almost in charge of reporting and documenting reports as well. So when you build a report in a HubSpot portal, you've got the option to add a description. There's even AI that will do it for you now. Do it.
No excuse now.
No excuse. And also little things like establish a naming convention for your report.
Yeah.
What's the structure? Is it marketing, June, events, or whatever it happens to be, so that anybody looking at that list of dashboards can say, that answers the question that I've just been asked by the chief exec. I can go back and tell them and everything's good.
I like that. So it's basically scale it back. What do you need to see? What not even what do you need to see, actually, it's what are the questions? And then you work out what you need to see, and then you can work out the reports in the dashboard, and it all comes together.
And it all comes together. And the only other thing to be careful of there is I like this idea of cascading KPIs, so that you've got the top level company KPIs. They need to translate to the departmental KPIs, and they need to translate to individuals' KPIs.
Yeah,
that gives you alignment. If everybody has different KPIs that don't at least relate to each other, then you just get a mess.
Yes, I think I need to bring you back for another Beyond the Hub around that. But before
you get me a soapbox to stand on that one.
Before we kind of wrap everything up, are there any additional resources or tools that you would recommend for businesses to use for their reporting and dashboards?
So the BabelQuest HubSpot hacks, there's a lot of good stuff in there. It's a huge database, approved by Kyle and everything. You can also, if you want to go a bit deeper and see some visuals of some of these dashboards, the HubSpot Academy reporting certification, the dashboard section has a lot of me talking about and showing visuals for some of these reports. It's also a really good certification. It's just been updated. It's much more practical and gives you much more ability to do things off the back of it. So definitely worth a look there.
Amazing. Great. And if we didn't talk about any of your dashboard problems that you want answers to, then drop one of us a note on LinkedIn and we can always write you a HubSpot hack on it if we can. But thank you, Chris, for joining us on Beyond the Hub. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say that was really informative. I definitely learned more from our chat. So I'll definitely be having you back soon.
Thank you, Bridget.